And that's really where we started thinking of Mayaverse. We started thinking that it's not that people are not nice. People think that they're wonderful people. Most people think that they're really nice people, nice human beings. It's just that they don't know how to create systemic solutions for a world that has systemic problems.
I'm really thrilled to have all of you jam-packed here because there's been one speaker, Anand Gandhi. He is one of the most fantastic minds in India. He's a polymath. His curiosity bundled into a body. His mind is alive. I call him an ATM of ideas. But though he's a director, he's a producer, he's a young band of people who run the Memesys Lab. He's directed Ship of Theseus, many other films. But that's not why we want to speak to him here today. What he and his group of young people are doing is to try and create a story for the 21st century. They've come up with this colossal new structure, I won't even call it an idea or a mythology, called the Mayaverse. And the idea driving that, they call themselves narrative engineers, is that the story, Yuval Harari said that what sets us apart as a species is our capacity. I mean, it was almost an evolutionary jump, was our capacity or our need for gossip and the story. That's one thing we can do that no other species can do. So Anand is here to talk about the power of the story, its importance in society, how do we wield it to update our consciousness and serve the 21st century. So ladies and gentlemen, we call him the sci-fi Valmiki because think of this as a kind of Purana for an era of AI and all other transformative technologies that we're talking about. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anand Gandhi.
Hey, Shoma. Oh. Thank you.
Entrance worthy of you. There was a kind of mystery whisper going around. Who is Anand? Where is Anand? Because we've missed you so many times. So Anand, as I said, what you're attempting to do is just a really mammoth project because it's to construct a whole new story for our consciousness, So first, what is the Mayaverse and why what is your idea of the story in society?
Thank you for the wonderful and generous introduction, as always, Shoma, and thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. Mayaverse is to me the answer to all the questions that have led up to this point in my life. So when I was 16 years of age, I'd gone to my philosophy teacher with a bunch of scribbled notes. And a couple of weeks later, I found those scribbled notes photocopied with all the PhD students as their thesis research subjects. And I found that a proud moment. I really thought I should earn a brownie point there. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, isn't this amazing that a 16-year-old student of yours has written these questions, and now you think that these are worthy of research subjects?" And he says, "Well, philosophical questions are questions raised by children that scholars fail to answer."
That's beautiful.
And Mayaverse to me is the sum total of all the philosophical questions that I've been asking my entire life, questions that all of us have been asking our entire lives, our entire history. Who am I? Where am I coming from? Is there a purpose to my existence? What do we do once we got this far? What do we do now that our legwork is going to be taken away by machines? So do we still have any purpose left? Questions like that, right? And these questions keep deepening. The deeper you go into answering these questions, more questions open up. Mayaverse to me is a sum total of all the questions and the solutions that I've had the privilege to synthesize and distill in my lifetime. A project that has been taken up previously as well by many before me.
So if you can kind of sum it up and tell us, I know you don't want to give it away because it's not in public domain yet.
Yeah.
But what is, I've kind of been plugging it, but what's unique about it?
Right. Before that, I would like to build a case for it. So, so let's kind of think about another story.
The power of the story.
Yeah, the another story told by a man, a white man, to his people just 20 years ago. And the story was it was a very simplistic story. That story was that it was an old story, an ancient story that has been told over and over again, that there is a bad man across the ocean who has really terrible weapons, and he has the intention to use it against us if we don't do something about it. Here's the man. Uh, so it's a bit of a jugalbandi because Zain got a bunch of slides and he's like, I'm going to project anything. I know what you're going to talk about, so I'm going to bring a lot of images along. So my co-creator with my team is working the images. So this gentleman, he said to his people that there is a really, really terrible man across the ocean who has terrible weapons, intention to use it against us, and $1 trillion and hundreds of thousands of lives destroyed, millions of families destroyed, a region destabilized later. Oops, no WMDs found. So there was indeed a weapon of mass destruction that was discovered at the end of this entire enterprise. But that weapon of mass destruction was not a weapon as we think of it. The weapon of mass destruction in this entire circumstance was the story, was a narrative that was unraveled, the story that was told at scale. So that's really the power of story that we forget. Of course, there are other pieces to it. The information, the record part of the story, who is telling the story, the narrator, all these things play along. And let's take another story in contrast, the story of a 9-year-old kid in a small town in India watches a beautiful story about the expansion of human consciousness and human imagination and human exploration beyond space and time. And 28 years later, Dr. Swati Mohan heads a mission at NASA, heads a Mars mission at NASA. So that's really the power of story that we have in front of us. Now, why is story such a compelling medium? Why is it that when I say story, I mean storytelling in general. So it also includes games, and we'll come to games also in specificity of games and what that does. But storytelling is an incredibly powerful medium that we have at our disposal because the greatest human ability is foresight, is the ability to foresee. We are the only species that has this incredible ability to imagine in our heads all kinds of futures, to start living all kinds of futures in our own minds just by sitting and thinking about them. Where does this foresight come from? The fuel of foresight is hindsight, is the ability to draw and record data that can be passed on generation after generation. So every generation does not have to start by scratching the surface of the data around, but data can be stored non-biologically and passed on generation after generation. So hindsight is the fuel. Foresight is our greatest ability. And the machine, the engine that enables this is insight. The relationship between hindsight, insight, and foresight together is what we call a story. Story, hence, is a simulation engine. It's a priority machine. It's our species' unique ability to update and upgrade our genetic software. Our genetic software was designed for a very specific time and age, but our species has this incredible ability to keep updating that software and the methodology to share new algorithms with each other, to share new insights, new behavioral insights with each other, new social insights with each other, and record them is story.
Right. So, you have this very interesting idea that the mythologies of the past have not got updated to serve this new, very bewildering society in which we're living. New technologies, gene editing, CRISPR, AI, all of that. Climate change, many simultaneous tipping points, forces coming together.
Yeah.
And so so Mayaverse came out of this idea that we need to upgrade our stories.
That's right.
Our subconscious needs it needs a kind of cleaning. So, and so you've been saying that the story, that we have that capacity for simulation. And the West, so when we talk about mythology, I'm not even talking religious mythologies, but the mythology of the future, the Marvel universe, the Hollywood exports that we all live on. And you said that there's a very different subcontinental civilizational idea here in India, which is what you're trying to amalgamate and come up with a new story. What is that? So, what is the new ideas that new mythology that will become relevant to the 21st century?
So the mythologies of the past, the mythologies have been more often than not phrased in terms of good versus evil, in terms of this is good, and now it's spiritual manifestation of this good to have to destroy evil, and then more often than not that the solution is by killing of evil. And the problem with that is that all these stories were written in capsules, in small micro-civilizational pigeonholes. And hence, the evil was always the outsider or the other or the one who has already taken over. the world that we are living in is a multidimensional world with a large number of people gathering, huddling up together in this global frame of living together. Now there, increasingly we can observe, and I'm increasingly convinced that the battlegrounds are not being fought between good versus evil. I mean, everybody who's engaging in battle, every side that's engaging in any kind of battle will think of themselves as good and the other as evil. And that dissonance comes from the problem with our stories itself. That we think, we've learned to think in these terms of good versus evil, whereas our real problems right now that we face as a civilization are haves versus have-nots. There is a percent of humanity that has access to all the technologies that you mentioned, and there is a large percentage of humanity that does not even begin to have any access whatsoever to things that were invented 14,000 years ago in agriculture. So I'll come to why we are so vulnerable to hacking. Before we kind of build the premise for what is it that we are doing and what our solutions are, it'll be useful to build the premise for why is it that we are so vulnerable to such hacking of storytelling. And because we think that we are really smart people, we think that we are also very good people. Most of us, I mean, unless we are complete sociopaths and aware of that, most of us believe that we are very good people with good intentions. Why is it that then there are still
Evil outcomes.
so much so many evil outcomes? Why is there so much misery? Why is there so much pain and suffering in this world? What is really going on? So there are a couple of ways of thinking about it. One very important way that gets missed out very often, and that's why I really want to bring everyone's attention to that one piece, is our vulnerability to stimuli, to stories, to all kinds of visual, auditory, and narrative stimuli. And to kind of bring that to context, I'll draw an Aesop's fable, but from modern mythology, from modern day biology, not from an ancient observed behavior, or behavior that has been observed in labs. Now let's look at, let's think of it as another story, a love story that everyone likes, unrequited love. In Australia, truck drivers, every time they're on a bypass, they drink this beer called Stubbies, and they often drop the bottle in the woods around. And when they wander around in the woods, they notice a very strange behavior. They notice this beetle called the bejeweled beetle, or the Juldimorpha beetle. The male of the species, oh wow, Zane is carrying everything. So the bejeweled beetle, the Juldimorpha beetle, the male of the species is often engaged in this courting ritual, and often in a mating ritual, with the most attractive, most beautiful female it's ever found in its life. This female is just perfect. It ticks all the boxes for the male psyche. She has a beautiful rotund body. She has like a beautiful translucent skin. Light pours through the skin and reflects the tightness of the surface. She's just like the rotundness and the largeness of the body means that she can carry that many eggs inside her. So she's just like the most attractive female this male has ever found in his life, and he's going to do everything. He's going to become Devdas for it. He is going to just court and try to mate with this female who's not interested in him at all to the end of his life. Now, the only thing here is that this female is not a real beetle. She's of our making. You see, the beer bottle stubbies have these dimples, have these tubercles at the edge for a better grip. And the tubercles simulate the body of a female beetle for the male. And not only do they simulate the body of the female beetle, it's the most perfect female. It's the body of this tubercle, this dimple at the edge of the bottle, as you can see over here, is shinier than any other female beetle. It's glassier, it's more translucent, it's tighter, it's more rotund than any other female. So when presented with a real female beetle, the male chooses a beer bottle instead. They're clapping because it does sound familiar already. And that's exactly the vulnerability that we face as a species. That we now imagine there was a really smart male beetle over there, and he would be like, what if I start a website where you can just go hot or not with bottles, or with females who shape themselves, who airbrush themselves to look like beer bottle dimples? He would be, Zucker Beetle. He would be like really smart in doing so. Not that he would necessarily understand why this is happening. He doesn't have to go take a biology course in understanding why that is happening. It's enough for him to sufficiently observe that male beetles seem to love these highly polished, rotund bodies and just present them a ton of them, keep them engaged in hot or not, and you can just like make all the advertising money in the world for doing that. I want to give one more example because I really want to drive this example home.
Yeah.
So let's take another example. I know that we are running out of time with Shoma. I know that. But to build a case that is completely new.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's
Okay,
good.
okay. So because these are new ideas and very difficult to kind of convey these ideas in 20, 30 minutes, I'm trying my best to simplify them.
Well at it.
Okay. I'd like to give another example because this is when you give an example like that, you think, oh, beetles are so dumb. But this is the kind of thing that's going about all the time in all the species. And to drive that home, I want to present one more idea, one more example. So let's take barn swallows. Barn swallows are these little tiny birds. They're like a little bigger than sparrow. Yeah, there, barn swallows. Now, barn swallows have this beautiful orangish, maroonish chest. They have these beautiful chest feathers. The reason males have these chest feathers is when they metabolize carotenoids in their body, their chest feathers also as a consequence become redder, and that invariably ends up showcasing their ability to fight diseases. So the red chest feathers don't have any function them itself, but the fact that the chest is red, that means that they have the metabolical capacity of carotenoid processing, and hence they have the immunity and genetic fitness to fight all kinds of diseases. Now, as a result, the female of the species absolutely loves these chest feathers. So, but barn swallows are socially monogamous. They nest together. Once a female and male find each other, they nest together. They bring up their offspring together. But males don't know this, but a lot of females cheat on the sly. They have these side pieces going on all the time. Now, scientists of Colorado University said, okay, there ought to be some pattern here. Like, why is it that these really hardworking, very, very committed simps, males, who are like putting so much effort into this nesting behavior, are being cheated on by their females? What is going on? So they found that the males who were very attractive to there was only one kind of male who was being cheated on, the male that had a paler chest, that had a whitish chest. That was the one that the females started losing interest in and started looking for a redder one. So scientists were like, what's going on? And they soon found that the reason for that, of course, is that the females are naturally programmed by evolution, they're hardwired by evolution, to look for a genetically fit partner. Now, females, again, barn swallow females don't have to go to a biology school to find out what carotenoid metabolism is and how that affects immunity or health of their progeny. They're naturally programmed. They're programmed by evolution. They're hardwired by evolution to respond to these markers, to these stimuli. And the response is invariably a fixed action pattern. That's called a fixed action pattern. So scientists of Colorado University said, okay, why don't we give the rejected ones, the scorned males, a makeover? So they took a $1 felt tip marker and rubbed it on the chest of all the pale-chested males who were rejected or scorned, and voila, they were instant hits with the ladies. They were suddenly laying all the eggs themselves. They were suddenly taking care of the eggs, and the females were not cheating on them anymore. So, when we think about human enterprises, this kind of behavior does not only translate to makeup or garments or pornography, which are the obvious parallels and examples that come to mind, or airbrushed people on social media. This is the kind of enterprise, this is the kind of thing that's going about all the time. Like, of course, the obvious idea is six packs in the human male is a marker for the ability to hunt and yeah, that slide came up, that's all.
Yeah, may I just intervene here?
Yeah.
Because I want you to start pulling these thoughts together
Yes,
into
yes.
is that, one has got that the illusoriness of this, or the fakery of things, which you can fall for and you're seduced by and you're mesmerized by. So if you pull all of that into a metaphor for how stories are kind of hacking our behavior, or how others are manipulating stories to condition behavior in us, draw it all together and tell us then,
Absolutely.
if the story is the cognitive gym, then what are you doing with it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's a metaphor that we use very often, which is how stories. So I'll very quickly, why is it that we are attracted to sugar? Why is it that we are attracted to a lot of human females or males even for that matter, because there is peer review there, are attracted to masculine six packs. It's not that we are going and hunting, it's not like that we are fighting predators like that we need these muscles for. But then if these barn solos were smart enough, soon enough they'll have a barn solo Hrithik Roshan dying to Kaho Na Pyar Hai with like muscles showing off, because that kind of muscularity, even though that's not of immediate use to us, that's not going to cure pandemics, that's not going to solve climate crisis, that's not going to solve the food crisis. Then why is it that having six packs is still so attractive? Because we are very easily vulnerable to that kind of behavioral response, and that's the most superficial ones. We are also equally vulnerable to ideas that the other will come and take away our wealth and our mating resources, our ability to find each other or create spaces for each other to have more progeny. Very vulnerable to stories that our kin, our kind, have to develop skills that outdo the kind of the others. And sports kind of builds upon a lot of that narrative ability. So a lot of our stories, a lot of our narratives have stayed trapped by
genetic behavior.
By this original behavior, that originated in forest and savanna environments, in environments of profound scarcity. So these are vestiges that we have carried forward. So here's another simulation. Imagine, I often do this, like future generations or anthropologists from the future, or anthropologists, alien anthropologists from Mars, looking at us from the future and saying, how is it? What happened? What really happened with these guys? Why did they keep killing each other? Why did they have billions of children dying hungry all the time? And the other, I can totally imagine the other person going, because they hadn't yet invented transportation, or they hadn't invented agriculture. It's like, oh no, that was 14,000 years before their time. They hadn't invented how to transport food to each other. Oh no, they could travel to space. Not only could they travel to space, they could grow food in space. Oh no, they didn't invent language yet. They didn't know how to communicate with each other. No, language was 60,000 years ago. Written language. Oh, that was like 18,000 years ago. No, language transmitting to each other, information transmitting very quickly. Oh, internet. They had internet. So what was going on? Why is it that they had all the tools at their disposal and they still didn't do anything about climate crisis, pandemic crisis, hunger crisis? Why was it that nobody was doing anything about it? What was going on? They didn't use the most powerful tool they had at their disposal, the tool that could allow them to simulate all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of futures, reverse engineer ways of making futures come true or ward bad futures off. Use a tool that is the most powerful tool that they had at their disposal, the tool to imagine nightmares and imagine dreams, and then reverse engineer the steps required to make dreams come true, reverse engineer the steps that would lead to nightmare eventualities so that we don't walk into nightmares. They didn't use the most powerful tool, which is story. They actually used it. So what were they using it for? Mostly mating rituals and blowing cars into helicopters.
Right.
They were using the most powerful tool at their disposal as a civilization, as a species, to tell stories of vestigial behavior, stories that were relevant to them. Oh, I see why. Because they weren't enough of them, so they had to make more babies. And to dream of more babies, you have to have romance and you have to love. You have to have. No, there were 8 billion of them. So the point is that we are not using the most powerful tool at our disposal, which is the ability to simulate multiple futures, to reverse engineer these futures into specific paths that can be chosen, that can be taken, that can be initiated to make certain futures come true and ward certain futures away from us. And the reason we are not doing that is because we are drinking our own Kool-Aid. The reason we are not doing that is because we are eating our own mithai. We are all just clicking our way away into with beer bottles, with dimples, and felt tip markers. We are completely addicted. And in fact, if you look at if you go to any storytelling session or any session of any kind, even tech sessions, the last 3 decades, and for that matter, the last 3 centuries of human enterprise have been about people talking shop like this, meeting in conferences and conclaves, and really just exchanging methods of addicting the behavior of other humans. You look at any storytelling session, they'll tell you how story structures work, which is what? Which is basically, if you build this recipe, you will end up creating a felt tip marker that will attract more attention, that will attract more addiction. If you look at any tech conferences, they're only about how to attract more attention, how to attract more addiction. So we are literally we are stupider than beetles, we are stupider than barn swallows because we are drinking our own Kool-Aid. Nobody has ever told a barn swallow or a beetle that this is what's going on. We know that. Scientists are screaming at the top of their lungs, this is what's going on, and still we don't do anything about it. We just keep drinking our own Kool-Aid. We just keep saying that, oh, that's fine, but I'm too smart for this, so I'm going to be the one who invents the felt tip markers for a little while. So that's really what's going on.
That's an absolutely fascinating analysis of the story. You know, you've also spoken of the story as a rectification of nature.
Yeah.
But Anand, we are out of time.
Yes.
So I'm just going to ask you to just pull this together literally
Already?
in 1 minute. Yes.
I'm not
it
even
has
begun
be
to.
in 1 minute.
We're in the first act of my case.
I know, but a lot of speakers, we've literally opened windows into their mindscapes.
Yeah.
This is a thought-seeding conference. You
Sure.
know, it's not the end of everything that we want to say. But pull it all together into now the Mayaverse. What's your idea for the Mayaverse? It has to be in 1 minute.
Okay, I'll try to make it in like 3 minutes at least. But so the point we started, just going ahead of that little simulation that we did, because alien anthropologist from Mars is a good way to put some thoughts into people's minds. Raju Hirani is here; he has done that as well with PK. So. If they were to ask to each other that, okay, that's fine, this is how the poor people died and suffered and were miserable, but what about the rich? What about the wealthy ones? You said that there are 2% of them that were really wealthy and had all the resources. So surely they lived a super happy life, enlightened, no anxiety, no insecurities, a life of purpose and meaning. And the other would be like, I guess not. Because why? What was going on with them? Because they had all the tools and all the possibilities. And the other one would perhaps be like, but nobody told them. Nobody told them what can they do with their wealth. Because if they think about it, it's not. The solution is not M&As. The solution is not more mergers and acquisitions. The solution lies outside of that domain. And that's really where we started thinking of Mayaverse. We started thinking that it's not that people are not nice. People think that they're wonderful people. Most people think that they're really nice people, nice human beings. It's just that they don't know how to create systemic solutions for a world that has systemic problems. And our older mythologies don't serve that imagination, don't serve the problems. Our older mythologies tell us what to do for local justice. Our older mythologies perhaps do a good job of telling us what some degree of justice is, but does not talk about climate justice, because that wasn't the problem. Does not talk about oncoming existential threats in front of humanity, because these were not the problems. It does not tell us about what to do when faced with these disparities. So the question that we started asking ourselves was, how do we do this? There have been attempts, of course. Climate scientists are talking about it. Everyone is talking about it. Nobody's listening. What do we do about it? We said, we'll do exactly what the hackers do, the hackers of behaviors do. Nobody's going to listen to us unless we make it as sexy as beer bottles and felt tip markers. Nobody's going to listen to us unless we make these conversations as sexy as playing PUBG and blowing each other's heads off. Because that's what we are programmed by nature to do, to reward. We are programmed by nature to reward stories of conflict, because we are designed in times of conflict. Yeah. The question we started asking ourselves 4 years ago was, how do we translate all this material, all these insights that we have at our disposal as a civilization, insights coming in from cognitive neurobiology, from evolutionary sciences in the world, with the future of AI, where AI is going to take away so much of our legwork in the coming years. How are we going to, what purpose are we going to provide ourselves as a species? What is left for us to do? And we took all these questions and all the answers that we synthesized and distilled together into a mega project, into a monumental project, which is called Maya. So this is really the first time that we are sharing some of this material with the world right now. It's launching later this year. It's been 4 years in making. And we said we are going to use every human expression at our disposal. We are not going to be like, we are going to find people everywhere in the world. This is not meant for only one kind of people or one class of people. It's meant for everyone at a scale that is unprecedented. Perhaps in the last 2,000 years, the scale has not been attempted even. So it's really Star Wars and Avatar and all the projects that we have seen from the West come together on steroids, with 1,000x scale. So quickly can show you a bunch of things from Maya. We started thinking of multiple species. We started simulating a planet. So we started thinking of, how do we answer these questions, some of the questions that we started talking about. Zain, are you still there? Can you just quickly run through what that looks like? So we started getting artists from around the world, started working on simulating a vast world with multiple facets. We started creating 8 billion year geological history of the world, evolutionary history, multiple species, their geopolitics, and this has become a large-scale metaphor, a large-scale allegory, really, and it's really a space for everyone to come and work in. So in a way that Vyasa's worked probably back in the day, or Valmiki's worked back in the day, not replicating what they did, not because a lot of that needs upgrading. And the great thing about mythology of this part of the world is it's always welcoming upgrading. You know, every time it's been rewritten, rethought. So that's what we are doing. We're reimagining some of the species that we have imagined in this part of the world. But these species have become placeholders and metaphors and allegories to talk about some of the most urgent issues of our time, urgent conversations of our time, but in a way that doesn't sound preachy at all, doesn't sound boring at all, doesn't sound like you're watching a documentary at all. It will be immersive, it will be experientially rich, it will be experientially enthralling, more fun, more exciting than any film or any game out there. So there are games, films, endless books, endless graphic novels coming out of this entire enterprise right now, with the singular intention that let's imagine, this is the work left to do in the world of AI for us. We have to give it direction. It's our child, it's our godchild, perhaps, and we have to handhold it now. It can simulate 200 futures for us. It can simulate 200 ways to achieve each of these futures for us, but we are the ones to have to choose our future. That's the job left for us to do.
Wonderful, Anand. And that really, those are very small insights, but you can see the massive thought process driving this project. So, ladies and gentlemen, watch out for Mayaverse. And thank you very much, Anand, for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much.